Terrence Oglesby, The Field of 68, a great podcast, a great college basketball podcast, and also he himself, a part of broadcast covering men's basketball, joins us on 365 Sports with Craig and Paul, and I'm David Smoke. Terrence, thanks for your time. I thought Texas last night, Texas and Baylor, a two-game lead for Texas over Baylor, a chance they lead the conference by the end of the night if K-State loses. Your thoughts about Baylor? They got on a roll after a tough start. And what is missing in your opinion?
You know what? I think more than anything, I think it's taken Keontae George a little bit longer than I think people expected to really mesh with the other guards. And while the other Baylor guards are kind of willing to wait their turn and, kind of play off one another, Keontae George isn't necessarily wired like that. He's a guy that's saying, hey, I'm going to go get mine right now. And being the freshman that he is, sometimes he forces the issue and other guys kind of get frustrated. All of that being said, though, I mean, they're still 5-4 in the toughest league in the country. That really, that's something to be said right there. And Baylor, because that talent at the guard spot is still so good, I don't have any reason to believe this is huge cause for concern. However, the defensive end of the floor is where Keontae George is worrying me a little bit. He's not all that focused away from the ball. Some of the other older players are. And while he is really good in one-on-one situations, he can lose focus away from the basketball. I'm not saying he's the lone reason for some of their issues because there's obviously not many. They're still ranked in the top 25 on a consistent basis. But what I am saying is for them to hit their ceiling, he has to be completely locked in and focused from the time he sets foot on the floor on both ends of the floor.
Texas last night looked very much like the veteran team that they are. Rodney Terry's kept things going in spite of the Chris Beard firing and the tension around that. What has been the key for them? Is it being a veteran team that's been allowed them to deal with that so well?
Yeah, I'm going to say yeah. I mean, it has to be. And, Tyrese Hunter, the transfer from Iowa State, has fit in seamlessly. And he was more of a ball-dominant, find other guys in the offense guy at Iowa State. Now he's transitioned into more of a scoring guard. And as evidenced by going 5 of 17 yesterday from the floor, I would have anticipated it going the other way in that Carr would be more of the offensive guy as far as trying to get his own shot and Hunter kind of be the distributor. But it's the fact that Marcus Carr is that older player, and he's playing with some other guys. Mr. Allen, for example, Dylan DeSue. They have a bunch of older pieces that are willing to play roles, and Sir'Jabari Rice has come into his own as of late. And the job that staff has done after the departure of Chris Beard and the fact that team has been able to stay together and stay focused on what they're trying to do has been nothing short of remarkable because let's be honest, guys, these are still young men that struggle with a lot of off-the-court issues, and that was a pretty substantial issue that they had to answer for through no fault of their own. So for them to still be able to put up an 18-4 record, be 7-2 in the toughest conference in college basketball, it says a lot not only about those kids but that coaching staff that has been put in place as well.
Terrence, what'd you make of that terrific game last night, Texas Tech over Iowa State? I mean, that's now 3 losses in their last 4 for the Cyclones, and Texas Tech, I mean, they were in a world of hurt, and now thanks to last night in the SEC Challenge against LSU, that's a couple wins in a row for the Red Raiders.
You know what? It's interesting how this game kind of ebbs and flows, right? But for the most part, this is a Texas Tech team that has struggled offensively at times during the season. I mean, you look at, they put together so many different pieces from all around, and it just hasn't quite meshed like a lot of people anticipated. And after losing, 8 in a row, for them to get LSU, who's reeling a little bit, you catch them at the right time. And guys, confidence is a fickle thing. And not only for the bad, but for the good as well. You see the ball go through the net a couple times, you score 76 points, and then you're able to knock down some shots against an Iowa State team who's consistently towards the top of the country in defense under TJ Otzelberger. So the fact that they're able to gather some confidence, they're moving the ball, and then you get guys that young players, for example, Pop Isaac, who hasn't played all of his games, but at the same time, those guys need confidence. Devion Harmon is playing a singular role as a point guard this year. He needed some confidence kind of stepping into that. And Kevin O'Banner has been as good as we've all kind of anticipated. His percentages just haven't been great. So what happens? You play against LSU, you start to feel yourself a little bit, see the ball go through the net, and then it could snowball as you get back into conference play. Sometimes all you need is just a boost of confidence.
You know, they also, and they needed to do something. They were down 23 or whatever it is. I saw a note from a couple of those that cover Tech. They went with a lot of full court pressure. Do you feel like that was like, what the hell, we have nothing to lose? And could that eventually now be what they do more often?
I mean, here's my thing. Whenever I was coaching, and I only coached for 3 years, so I don't try to claim to be some coach. But at the same time, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I know that saying stretches over to Texas all the way from Tennessee. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're going to pressure a little bit, why wouldn't you? Especially with a team that's really struggled gathering their footing. We've expected this Texas Tech team to be among the top 3 defenses in the Big 12. Well, this season, out of 10 teams, they're number 9. That doesn't happen all that often. So what do you have to do? You have to mix up some things. You mix up some things, you see some success. If that's what you have to do, play a couple of more bodies, put a little more pressure, and extend that defense out. I mean, obviously, that helps things. And sometimes, guys, too, whenever you extend the pressure out, you leave yourself vulnerable at the rim. But Daniel Bacho has been good at protecting the basket, so you can extend out a little bit further. And if you're able to create some live ball turnovers, if you're able to create some situations where, hey, there might be a tie-up and then we can take off and run with the basketball and create easier looks on offense, that certainly helps because at times it's been a team that really struggles in the half court.
What do you think the record is of the team that wins the Big 12?
That's a great question. That is a great question. Out of 18 games, I would say 12-6 should win it.
You know, Ken Palm.
That's amazing, right?
Yeah, Terrence. Ken Palm had something out maybe a week ago. He said there would be 4 teams at 11-7. So right there where you were mentioning, and maybe even 4 teams at 10-8. That's how the analytics look. So 12-6 would probably do it. Yeah.
12-6, 13-5. I think that'll probably do it because guys like, for example, Kansas, you know, they have to play Baylor away, then they play at Kentucky, and then now they have Kansas State at home, which we know how difficult a place it was to play at Manhattee and how Kansas State got that win, so their confidence is growing a little bit. Oh, are you tired of Kansas State trying to beat them at home? Then you have to go to Hilton Coliseum. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. You want to play your next game? Texas at home. Good luck. I don't envy a single Big 12 coach because it's just such a deep conference with quality coaches 1 through 10.
Oklahoma had just an absolute amazing win against Alabama, which I don't think anyone could have seen, not even the coach. But do you feel like because of a win like that, if they can somehow get near 500, 8-10 in the conference, does that give them a chance to get in the tournament?
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. There's so many quad one opportunities in that league that if you're able to, and guys, I want to make this abundantly clear. I hate the net. I absolutely hate the net. To me, a win is a win is a win. You look across the country, like Clemson goes down and wins at Florida State. Well, that's a quad 3 win. Well, if you take that into mind that Florida State earlier in the season struggles because they have a ton of injuries and they basically snowballed at the beginning of the year. Now they're healthy. You go down there, you have to scrape and claw for a win in Tallahassee. That is historically a really tough place to play. You win that game by 1 point and you drop 5 spots. Please make it make sense. Makes no sense to me. I don't get it. All of that being said, with the net rankings currently construed the way they are, Oklahoma, if they're close to 500 in that league, I don't see how there's a justification to try to keep them out. It's just it's such a tough league with so many quad one opportunities. If you're close to 500 in the league, you almost have to be like, I'm just going to throw in the towel and give it to them because it's such a good conference to play in, and you're able to do it consistently, at least be in games consistently. And the talent's there that's good enough to compete in the NCAA tournament.
Do you think, you mentioned that you don't envy the coaches in the league because of, the stretch. I mean, is it kind of weird that you could say like, hey, let's go play at Kentucky where they have some real problems? And then that even in the tournament might be a little bit of a relief in the early rounds that you're just not seeing one of your fellow conference brethren again.
Okay, so I didn't quite understand that question. I'm sorry.
Is it kind of a relief for the coaches when they play outside the conference? Like now, like going forward, tournament-wise, they just played like Bill Self's easiest game of the last 3 weeks was going to be at Kentucky against Calipari. It's nuts.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said there, and there's also a lot to be said towards the bottom of the Big 12 with teams that are struggling to kind of get the rhythm. Right, so Oklahoma gets out of conference. They play a different type of team in Alabama who didn't have their best game. And now after losing 3 in a row, you beat an Alabama team that's consensus top 5 in the country, depending on who you talk to. Well, it's no consensus. It's top 5 in the country. You have that kind of performance on their worst day. It's your best day. You get some confidence, and now you get to play Oklahoma State at home with a chance to turn things around in league. So I think it helps more so with the bottom of the conference than it does the top, just simply because the top of the SEC is on par with the top of the Big 12. Where the depth begins is in that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 area, where that's where the Big 12 really gets you, because those teams in the SEC would be in the top 5 if you plucked one and then set it in the SEC as from a talent perspective. So to agree with your point, for the bottom of the conference, yes. For the top of the conference, it's equally as difficult, without Kentucky being in the mix, because they have the whole slew of problems that they've been struggling to get.
Okay, so I was watching a clip from a recent podcast. I think Rob Douster was on. It wasn't Jeff Goodman. It might have been somebody else. And I think someone was talking about either taking a clutch shot or I don't know what it was. How fast can you dial up the Tennessee fight song?
How fast can I do it?
Yep.
Okay, so if you need me to dial it up right now, I can get it up pretty quick on my phone. Okay, pretty quick, because I have it saved in there. Here's the reason. So I grew up in East Tennessee. I grew up about 20 minutes outside of Knoxville. It was part of your 3rd grade curriculum to learn the words to Rocky Top. I was indoctrinated. This was not my choice. So now it's put into my bones. Like, I have no choice but to teach my kids Rocky Top, because I felt like that's a part of my upbringing. That all being said, I end up at Clemson, and it's kind of the same way. I'm trying to teach them the cadence count at Clemson, all those different things. But Rocky Top is on the phone for no other reason than it reminds me of home.
I love it. I love the fight song. A lot of people do. I love it. I think it's one of the most hip ones as far as just the beat and all the stuff. It just sounds cool to me.
Timeless. It's timeless.
Terrence, you were on a podcast with Rob Douster and John Fanta. Of the 3 of you, who is the biggest basketball nerd?
That's a good one. As far as strictly analytics is concerned, I would go Dauster. From a storyline perspective of everything that goes on around the game, that's Fanta. Actually watching the game and seeing the angles and how it goes, that's where I thrive. Okay. So it kind of depends on where you go. So I didn't answer your question. I artfully dodged that one. But it depends on what kind of nerd you're talking about.
It is tough. Look, we've had John on lots of times, and every time I hang up the phone, I'm like, I'm kind of, I feel like I got to watch like 20 more games right now just to even like gather what he just did. Watch him doing tweets in the airport, just talking about the game he's going to is unbelievable too. So.
Yeah, he is. I will say this about John. He's nonstop. He is phenomenal at what he does. He's great at storyline. Now, that all being said, like Dauster played Division III ball. I obviously played in the ACC. John, didn't play, but he loves the game so much, and he's so passionate about it. The way he explains everything going on, the lead up to it. I mean, we all provide a little bit of something different, right, within that podcast, which is why it works, I think, more than anything. But John, I'm telling you, this guy eats, sleeps, and breathes it. It is nonstop. For me, like, if I do 6 games in 7 days, like that 7th day, I at least need until about 2 o'clock just to kind of unwind. Not John. He can go and go and go and go. It is one of the most remarkable things I've seen, and it just never quits.
He's a great guest, and so are you, Terrence. We appreciate your feedback, insight, and experience. Appreciate your time. Have a great week with your games, and we'll talk to you again hopefully during or right before the NCAA tournament.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Terrence Oglesby, the Field of 68, with Douster, Rob Douster, obviously, John Fant, Jeff Goodman, Terrence Oglesby, former Clemson player, as he mentioned. And I saw just a 15-second clip or 45-second clip, and Douster was asking a question, and then Oglesby just went straight to his phone. He was on, I guess, Skype at the time, and here comes Rocky Top. When we come back,